And the issue is transparency. People want to know, how do you ensure transparency? How do you improve transparency? And the way I'd like to look at it is, when citizens complain that there isn't enough transparency, just what is it that you think they want to know more about?
That's a good question. Yeah, I think it's a variety, I'm sure, but for the most part, they want to know, okay, how can my student get the best education that they need? If there's a gap, if something's happened, either they're not learning something, they don't have access to something, that's what drives them to ask this question and dig in a little deeper. So I do think it varies from person to person, and ultimately, especially lately, a lot of it comes down to funding, so folks want to know how the dollars are spent.
I think that people want to know where money is going, how decisions are being made, and why decisions were made a certain way. What else did the board know? Did they talk about what happened basically behind the scenes in private email? What other comments did the board get in private emails that the public doesn't see at the board meetings? So those are the main things, I guess, for transparency.
When I hear transparency, I want to know why decisions are being made, and I want to know how those decisions were made. I'm going to tell you, I honestly, in transparency, am not smarter than a first grader, because I cannot do math in the first grade books. It's hard today to understand what's going on in our school systems, and it's hard to understand when you're choosing a new superintendent why you weren't more involved in it instead of just a few people showing up. So bottom line is, I think we need to open up a little bit more and let people know what's going on in our school system.
Well, I can tell you from the email that I get, and I get a lot of it, that what people are looking for varies from case to case and from issue to issue, and it will be different 2 weeks from now than it was a month ago. Nonetheless, I do want to make a point that I think is important. Harford County Public Schools does a lousy job of messaging. We've always done a lousy job of messaging. It was that way before I was on the board, and it's been that way the entire time I've been on the board, and quite frankly, it's something I'd like to change.
Yes, I've advocated for transparency, and I've addressed specifically what I mean by transparency, and I've spoken about it before the Board of Education. Well, first of all, the Board of Education needs to frankly hold its meetings properly under the Open Meetings Act. Also, they need to come clean with decisions that are being made behind the scenes. For example, I've read in the media, and I've heard from the Harford County Public Schools that some decisions have already been made with respect to cuts that are going to happen on Monday. Well, we have no idea what these cuts are. I have no idea what these cuts are, so there needs to be greater transparency there. And also, we need to stop it with gimmicks that are coming up at the last minute on the board, and such things as the drama fee amendment that came up before any notice. And in fact, I fought against the drama fee when I spoke before the board, and I was chewed out by a member of the board for doing that. So nobody can say that I have not advocated for transparency. I've been very clear about what transparency means. Thank you. And thank you for raising this question.
Thank you. And basically, everyone who has preceded me has given a very clear definition of transparency. I want to know what we're spending, why we're spending it. And my particular concern came up with the math series that was purchased. And I'm still saying to myself, my God, who thought that was a good idea?
So, so let me just tell you what I'd like to do in my next term to try to address transparency. Part of the problem is, not part of the problem, part of the fix is creating an opportunity for the stakeholders to be at the decision-making table. One of the things that we do, we should be doing more of to open up this process is to create some vehicle, some way that we allow the public and the other stakeholders a seat at that table. Rather than a top-down decision-making approach, we need to have a 30 seconds.
Just smooth talker, I could listen to you all day. When I think about transparency, I think about proactive communication, right? We could definitely talk about the board. It's clear that the media is not helping the Board of Education. I'm not even on the board, I could see it. That's certainly an area where clearly we need to collaborate more with the local media so that we can continue to open that up. In addition, I think about communication when things happen in our schools and how they're communicated. I indicated earlier that my son had a friend that committed suicide. That happened on a Wednesday. Granted, it was right before Easter, but nothing went home to the parents until the following Monday. It just didn't feel like it. I just think that transparency means a lot more communication.
Yes.
Well, it could start with transparency between the administration and the board. We frequently learn things when everybody else learns. But I think transparency, when people want to know who's on what side, they want to know who's making the decisions on issues. I think that's probably as important as anything in terms of transparency. Where do people stand?
I would agree with that. I'm going to keep my eye on Rachel, though, because she's going to keep me honest, and I could talk about this for a while, too. So we absolutely get tons of email. We absolutely hear from friends in our community. We hear from constituents in our community. We hear from the folks that show up at the meetings. And I think what the overwhelming issue is the communication piece. I think there isn't enough of it. I think there needs to be more of it. We certainly have had moments behind the scenes where we're sitting there going, why aren't we telling people that? Is there a reason why it seems like we're hiding it? I've certainly asked questions myself about it. So there you go, I'm done. Okay.
Thank you very much.